Right, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jonny Green from Trotec Laser, and a very, very warm welcome to Trotec Live. We're very excited to bring you 3 full days of exciting laser-related content, during which we're going to be talking about laser technology, laser applications, various tips and tricks, and maybe, just maybe, have a little bit of fun along the way too. So many thanks to Brian and Sharon for the introduction. We're here in our sunny Loughborough showroom with my good friend and colleague Trevor Stevenson. And today we're going to be talking to you about the differences between glass tube and ceramic lasers, one of the more common questions we get asked. So, and why you might want one rather than the other for various tasks. So let's get on with it. I'll pass you over to Trev, who's got a presentation to run through, and then we'll fire up some lasers and show you what they do. So, so over to you, Trev.
Thanks, Jonny. Morning, everybody. Got a quick PowerPoint presentation just to obviously talk about the highlights and the features of both machines. Not too many slides, and what we'll also show you is the machines in action. So the idea of this presentation is to give you the heads up on both types of laser source, what the benefits are for both of them, and obviously look at which is the right one for your business. Just hide that. So in the first instance, the 2 machines that we're going to be using today are going to be the Q500, which is our glass tube that we're going to be using, and Johnny's going to be operating that. I'll be using the Speedy 400, which is a ceramic tube. Both of these machines are 120 watts. When we look at the difference between the 2 machines, cost is always going to be an implication that we've got to take into account. So the glass tube has got a lower entry price, so it's more accessible. Ceramic tube is a higher price, but it's more than likely going to give you a faster payback because of the speeds that we can reach and the productivity that we can produce with this machine. In terms of size, typically glass tube machines tend to be a little bit bigger than ceramic source, just because you need a bigger footprint for the chiller, for the compressors, sometimes the extractors. Whereas on the Speedies, what we've got is a more compact footprint. They're air cooled, so we don't need a chiller. The compressor inside the Speedies is also built in as well. In terms of the laser source lifespan, glass tube replacement can vary greatly depending on the work that people are using it through, how much they are pushing that power source in terms of for output, also the temperatures and things that you're keeping it in. So typically, somewhere between 1 to every 2 years, you might be looking at replacing a glass tube. Some people more, some people less. With a ceramic tube, we would say somewhere between 6 to 8 years, and we've got some people whose laser tube has lasted even longer than that. In terms of technical support, if we talk broadly about glass tube lasers, hang on a second, my screen just slipped. Jonny, I think you've assaulted my screen.
Sorry. I've jumped the gun a little bit there, haven't I? Apologies.
Just a touch. So where was that? Ah, that's right, yeah. In terms of technical support, with typical Chinese glass tube imports, there's very little support except for kind of Facebook groups, everything like that. We as a manufacturer offer a wide range of comprehensive support for our glass tube machines. When you look at the ceramic side of the market, there are third-party distributors and dealers. However, again, we are the manufacturer, so we can support every machine that we put out into the market. When we look at applications, if we look at engraving, the Q series with it being a glass tube machine is going to be relatively slow. We're going to be engraving at somewhere between 300 and 500 millimeters a second. I think the demonstration that we're doing today, we've set it up at 400 millimeters a second. With the Speedy, I'm going to be using the Speedy 400, which is capable of engraving at 4.3 meters a second. Because we've got a more sophisticated tube, we can fire the laser more often, therefore we can get movement from left to right quicker. In terms of cutting capabilities, glass tube is absolutely fine for this. It's going to be able to cut reasonably fast, depending on the wattage and the material that we're using. Thinner materials are always going to cut faster than thick materials, and that's what we'll be doing as well with the Q series. With the Speedy series, we can get even more speed out of it. We've got a better quality beam, a finer beam, plus we've also got better mechanics behind it and electronics for the motion control that's going to allow us to navigate straights faster and obviously curves quicker and smoother. When we look at the beam quality and accuracy, glass tube is always a little bit difficult because of the different range of tubes that are available. So sometimes that beam width that's being developed is somewhere between 3, maybe 5 millimeters, depending on the quality of the tube. We've also got less control over it in the lower power regions. So that can make it a little bit more difficult sometimes with really delicate materials. With the ceramic laser tube, we've got a better quality laser tube. That's going to be generating a beam of about 2 millimeters wide. Once we put that through typically like a 2-inch lens that we're going to use today, that goes going to give us a beam width of about 0.2 of a millimeter. So we get higher accuracy, repeatable, and we've also got a lot of control over the power, both at the top end, the middle, and in the lower regions, so we can be really delicate. In terms of the mechanics and the motion control, on the glass tube machines, it's usually stepper motors, just because that's the kind of helping keep the cost down. However, the Q500 has servos, so that just gives us more speed, more control, especially with things like corners and curves and circles. The Speedy machine has got servo motors, and it's also got OptiMotion. Again, higher end mechanics, higher end electronics that allow us to navigate all of this through with better, speedier results. When we look up both machines and compare, the Q series has got a 120 watt laser. With the Speedy, we've got between 30 and 120 watts. On the work area of the machine that we're using today, it's 1300 by 900. The Speedies are available from 610 by 305 up to 1016 by 610, which is the Speedy 400. Both machines are using Job Control, which is our software. So that allows us to go straight from something like CorelDRAW or Adobe Illustrator straight into the machine. We've not got to convert the artwork into another type of file. The Speedy series have also got access to Ruby, which is a new software we've launched that we'll probably cover later on in more detail. Both machines are built for running as fast and reliable and as durable as they can be. However, the Speedy is a faster machine, no two ways about it, and we get that repeatability from it. With the Q series, there currently aren't any accessories available, but there are some in the pipeline for coming. Whereas with the Speedy, there's a wide range of accessories and options available, things like Job Control Vision, which is a camera system. We've also got Programmable Z, which we'll touch on a little bit in a while in part of the demo, as well as a range of tables, etc. And there is going to be a focus with Brian and my colleague Jamie, I believe tomorrow morning, which is going to focus on the Speedy 400 in depth, and it'll give you a complete walk around.
Yeah, so 11:20 tomorrow morning for those interested in that.
With both machines, obviously as a manufacturer, we can offer a comprehensive technical service and support from our tech team, obviously up in the northeast and the engineers, but also part of mine and Johnny's remit and Brian's remit is to look after customers and help them. It can be optimizing files, it can be support working with materials. One of the things that we've also got as a resource is a guy called Alex Beckingham, who you're going to see over the next couple of days, and he's our application engineer. So he's hugely experienced, hugely knowledgeable, and as a team, we lean on Alex quite heavily just for his knowledge with some of the applications.
Certainly do, and he's on this afternoon for his photo webinar as well. So thanks to Lothian Woodworks for pointing that out earlier on today.
So what we'll do now is I'm going to hand over to Johnny, because he's going to just talk you around the glass tube machine and the demonstration that we've set up.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trev. That was a fabulous presentation. There's loads of great information there. Just to say a few quick hellos before we crack on. So hello to Ace Toys, hi to Sophia, and hello to Alan, and of course hello to the Wooden Shape Company, who were again gushing with praise for us today. And just to back up what you were saying about the long life of the ceramic tubes, so we've got Speedy 100 still firing away after 6 years and doing a great job. So a very long-lasting and reliable technology. So let me, at the correct time now, actually add my screen to the stream. So let me, there we go. So When we're sending jobs to the laser machine, we need a graphic software. Typically, we'll use CorelDRAW. CorelDRAW is a great bit of software for this, so we'll just fire that through without any further delay. The reason we like to use CorelDRAW is because it's very flexible and you can import nearly 100 different file types into it. So we've got our settings here. We will just choose the wood setting that we have for it. So we've got the power and the speed of the machine there. Just hit print like you would any other printer. And if our software is not already running, at this point is when it fires up. So then we can just bring that into the working area. We can use the cursor of the machine as a snap point for it. And then we just need to hit the play button down here. And off it goes. Let me just swap my camera so you can see what the laser's doing. And there you see we're just going back and forth over the material line by line. When we're engraving, we'll be doing what's called a raster fill, so filling it line by line like a printer would. So we're going back and forth. This is the Q500. So as Trev says, this is a glass tube machine. It has 120 watt glass tube laser, and it will cut 15 mil or so of most common materials. It has a servo motor motion control system, which means that it has a fast, smooth operation, and maximum traverse speed on this machine is 2 meters a second. So it's much faster than the more basic R series of machines, which are basically the same size chassis and platform. So it'll just work its way down the workpiece, and then we'll pass you back to Trevor to talk a little bit more about the Speedy 400. So.
Thanks, Johnny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to swap over so you can see my screen. It's going to come as no surprise. I'm going to use exactly the same file. What I am going to do is I'm just going to change my camera just so you can see inside the machine. So now, obviously, you can see Johnny's machine running, and we've got the Speedy 400 up and running. So I'm just going to treat this in exactly the same way. I've already got the artwork, 300 by 200 wide, using CorelDRAW. I'm going to go File, Print. Using the Trotec engraver. And then we've got the parameters that we're going to be using for this breadboard. So I'll just open this up just to show you a little feature. So I've already got my material set up. I'm going to use black for the engrave. I'm going to use 100% power, 80% speed. I'm only going to do this in one pass. I'm going to leave the air assist on, but I did mention earlier that we can use a programmable Z. So what that's going to do is that's going to just lower the machine slightly, just so I'm running slightly out of focus for some more contrast. And I'm doing that at 4 millimeters.
Do you want to quickly explain what the air assist does, Trev, while you're there?
Well, the air assist,
might not be aware on that.
The air assist we predominantly use for cutting, but what it's going to do is just going to put some compressed air just past the lens to keep everything nice and clean. I'm running this file at 333 dpi, so we just click on Job Control, click on Print, and then at the bottom of my screen in a second, Job Control goes gold, and then we can see the laser bed. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly click on that. That's going to go into the machine. I'm going to check my file. It's in the right area. And now we press play. Now, if you just might have just noticed, you'd have seen the table just drop slightly.
So that's just putting in the offset for the focus. So the reason for that is if we're engraving in focus, we might be getting some good depth, but we might not be scorching and burning the material much. And we need to do that a little bit just to get the contrast. So that's why on some machines like the Speedy 400, having that focus offset really does make a big difference. And good morning to Kay from all the way from Saudi Arabia. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Yours is going a bit faster than mine, Trev.
Just a touch. So let's just have a look at this. So we've got both machines running. Back one. So has any questions come in yet, Johnny?
We just have, literally just now. So we've got a quick question from Sophia. Can the job control software be run on a Mac? Short answer is no. However, this is one of the primary drivers behind the development of the Ruby software. So the Ruby software can be run on a Mac. You still, for the time being, need a PC, Windows PC, as kind of a conduit to the laser. So you connect your laser to a PC, but then you don't need to mess with the PC at all. You can run it exclusively from the Mac, control everything from the Mac. So while job control can't, we do have a solution for this now at long last. And if you look on YouTube, Trotec Canada have got some fabulous videos on how that setup works and how to get it running. So have a look on Trotec Canada on YouTube, and you'll see all about it there. So everyone watching, feel free to let us know where you're watching from and if you're enjoying it. So we've got 3 whole days of content, which we're very excited to be bringing to you. How are you feeling about it so far, Trev?
Good. If you take a look at the cameras, both machines are at roughly the same point now within the file. So the Speedy 400 is caught up.
Yeah. So both of these machines have the same drive system. They both run on servo motors. They both have our OptiMotion system, which we will go into more over the next few days. But essentially, it's a pathing optimization software, which will, particularly for cutting of thin materials, let the laser move at an optimized speed with very little setup needed. So very similar technology-wise. However, the Speedy has a much lighter laser head, so it's able to go over twice as quickly as the Q500 here. But the Q500, as we will go into much more detail tomorrow, is much more set up as a cutting machine with an engraving ability rather than just a pure high-performance cutting and engraving machine. So it's different machines for different purposes.
And as you can see from both pictures, the Speedy, we are getting less of a dark mark. That's all going to be down to a couple of things. Things like the beam width, the quality of the beam, and we can have a very light touch with it. So with the Speedy 400, I haven't actually set that up to run as fast as it could because I do want to put some colour into that board. And we'll be approaching the end of the file on the Speedy. What's yours looking like, Johnny?
We're most of the way down now. We're probably 3/4 the way through it. So you've overtaken us quite clearly. In fact, I don't even think we're that far. I think we're about 2/3 in.
I always like to give you a start.
Thanks, mate.
So, as we can see, the Speedy is finished.
So, got a comment from Mark. Hi, Mark. So I've got a cousin called Mark Green. How are you doing? I presume that's not you. Yes, the glass tube does look more burnt than the Speedy, and that's because the Speedy, having a ceramic tube, has got a higher beam quality. So by that I mean it's going to have a rounder laser beam and a more focused power of the laser beam. So the glass tube doesn't have quite as fine a spots it's focusing down to, so we're getting a lot more burning onto the material for it. It's also part of the nature of a glass tube laser because you often can't turn it down low enough to get a nice sort of finessed result with it. So it's all part of what the technology is really. With glass tube lasers, predominantly a cutting machine, but with the ability to engrave as well, albeit not with quite so much control as the Speedies. Thanks, Cuz. Hi to David from Robert Gordon University. Very glad you're happy with your machines. Sure, my colleague Chris, another Green, wherever we're, he'll be delighted to hear that. Trev, do you want to change your surname to Green just to fit in?
I'd like to change my first name, never just my surname, to be fair. So we're coming towards the end of the file. So there's been a marked difference between the two machines running. Obviously the Q500, we set it off first and we're still just waiting for that to come through. So in a moment, what we'll do is we'll take both samples out of each machine and then we'll be able to show you on the cameras just to give you something to kind of contrast and compare.
So another question coming in from, and I apologise in advance, but Cargle. Apologies. Are they both running on similar settings? Absolutely not. No, we're running on very different settings because the lasers demand that, because the motion control systems let them run at different speeds, and the laser technology is fundamentally different. So the settings that the Speedy is running at is running at full power and 80% speed. The Q500 is going a lot slower because that's what a glass tube requires. So we're at 40% power and 40% speed for that one. Or needs to racing, the Speedy 400 come with a ceramic tube as standard? Yes, it does. Yes, it absolutely does. So the ceramic tube is the only CO2 tube that we offer with the Speedy 400. However, we do also have the option of a secondary fiber laser, which again, JB is going to go into when he does his session tomorrow morning with our friend Andy Camplin down in Guildford. And yeah, fiber laser is a very good technology for direct marking onto metals without any kind of treatment onto the metal beforehand. But as goes the CO2, yeah, ceramic tube on the 400 on everything. Are you running air on the glass tube? Yes, we are. Yes, yeah, we're running air on both.
There you go.
Amy Gill. How are you doing, Amy? Lovely to see you. My podcast buddy. I sometimes join for the live streams from our Canada branch, doing the Rayjet Challenge. So lovely to hear from you. Hope you're well.
So, as we can see, what I'll just do is I'll just bring, that's the cheese board up, obviously for you to guys have a look at and inspect. So we've got all that lovely fine detail. We've engraved into the grain of the material, and we've got a little bit of contrasting colour. In fact, I'll probably swap that back.
Let me just grab my one and show what we've got with that.
That's better.
Get the camera sorted.
So we've got all that lovely detail, even around Johnny's graphic, with very little discoloration. We've put some tone into the wood, but very little discoloration. And then obviously what we've not got to do with this sample is we don't actually need to clean it.
Yeah, so what I'm doing now is just using a little bit of meth spirit on a rag just to get the burning away, because sometimes it can release some sap and debris from the wood, so it just needs a little bit of a clean. You could also give it a very light sand if you prefer, but there we go. That's the result on the glass tube machine. So it can miss out some of the very, very fine detail, but you do get a very nice contrast with it, and quite a lot of colour change with it too. So that's that one.
So there's just two boards.
Mm-hmm.
So back to my presentation. So now this is where we get to have a look at the ROI. So we've used the same piece of artwork on two very different machines. As you can see, the Q500, we've done a single board. The board costs about £3.50, and it took 16 minutes and 3 seconds to engrave that one board. When we look at the ceramic tube machine, we're using the same board, same graphic. We've been able to engrave that one in 3 minutes and 34 seconds, so hugely faster. If we then go and look at how you would look at realistically batch producing boards, the Q500 will take 16 boards, so I can do one run, 16 boards, that's going to cost me £56. It's going to take 159 minutes, or 2 hours 39 per run. I've got enough time in a day to do 3 runs, a total of 48 boards. If I was to sell those boards at £15, we've generated turnover of £720. The cost of the boards is £168. That would give us £552 profit. When I look at the Speedy, what we've got is 9 boards to 1 bed, so £31.50 to fill it with chopping boards. It's going to take me 27 minutes to do 9 boards. That means I can run that machine 17 times in 1 day, 153 boards in total. If I sell at the same price of £15, That gives me a turnover that I've generated of £2,295. If I remove the cost of the boards at £535.50, that gives us a total profit of £17.59.50, which is a huge amount. So
Nice.
we can see the benefits that the faster, more powerful laser it brings to us in productivity.
Absolutely, and it's important to remember that's not just 1 month, that's every month, year on year on year on year on year, on a very long-lasting machine, which costs very little to run, and it's just pure profit. Laser, part of the beauty of using laser is running costs are incredibly low for this kind of equipment. Like, there's nothing in this entire showroom that isn't just on a normal 3-pin plug socket, so it's a very, very profitable enterprise once you're set up for it. So let's just look at the comments. Oh, we've got a question from Paul. Can you run the engraving process from front to back of the breadboard? Yes, we do have absolute control over that. We can start at the top of the workpiece or the back of the workpiece. Doesn't make a huge amount of difference when working with wood most of the time. But on certain materials like our 2-ply laminate plastics can make an enormous difference just to constantly be pushing the dust towards the extraction rather than dragging it over where you've just engraved. So that's an excellent point. Hi, Kate. Can you use spirit for cleaning wood if it's been treated with a varnish? You can if you're gentle with it, but it might be easier if it's been varnished. You've got a nice smooth surface, just like a baby wipe or something like that would be absolutely fine for it.
Yeah, I think there are some people who might also sometimes oil the board as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Some before, some afterwards, just to get a little bit more colour out of it as well.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got a comment from 80 Toys here. So not liking your one, Trev. No, but look, it just highlights that engraving is a very subjective thing. I mean, it goes in and out of fashion too. So, you know, depending on what you're looking for out of it, yeah, you might want a light or a dark engrave. It's all down to personal preference, but very easy to control and tweak your settings accordingly to get that kind of result. So yeah, it's all down to personal preference with engraving. There's no one perfect engraving setting, particularly on something like wood where there's so much scope for tweaking power, speed, offset, the DPI. There's a lot of buttons to press to try and get it to the level you want. But once you've established that, setting saved, just run it like that forever.
Yeah, and the thing is with wood as well, part of the beauty of wood is also part of the problem, because every board could be slightly different. You could sit here and think you've absolutely nailed the setting for 9 boards, and then the next 2 could be just slightly sappier, slightly more resin. The other thing is as well is we're not always, and again this is personal preference, we're not always looking for depth. We're not always looking for colour. Sometimes we're just having a look for a contrasting mark. But again, it's just a question of just adjusting the speed, adjusting the power, even adjusting the offset or even the lens. I'm using a 2-inch lens, whereas I could always swap that to a 2.5 just to make that beam spot that little bit bigger. The benefit of the example that I've done is there's no other processing. So it'd be very easy to tweak just to get a little bit more colour into that.
Absolutely, that's a great point. So, Sophia, hi again. So, when you say 9 boards to 1 run, do you mean lay 9 boards out in the machine at one time? Yes, we absolutely do, because then the laser can stay at full speed for longer. So, instead of just going back and forth over one product, it could be zooming over lots of them at once. So, the time saving, the increase in production is absolutely huge.
We actually could have fitted 10 boards in the Speedy 400, but it actually slowed it down marginally. So, we just went with 9, 3 rows of 3. Whereas with the Q500, we were able to fit in 16, 4 rows of 4.
So hi again to Lothian Woodwork. So Speedy seems like the clear winner for financial gain. So you win, Trev.
Thank you very much.
No, absolutely right. I mean, one thing about lasers in general is laser products, laser machines, can often have a not insignificant number on the price ticket, but you've got to think about the potential that can bring you in terms of productivity, the amount you can produce, the amount you can then sell your product for, but also things like how much it's going to cost you over the lifetime of the machine. And yeah, while lasers are not a cheap object, but over the lifetime of them will not cost you anything in terms of inks or fuels or anything like that. It just runs on electricity and not a great deal of that. So it can be very, very efficient over the lifetime of it.
Well, the other thing to consider as well, when you look at these 2 machines, one is roughly twice the cost of the other. However, as you can see from the figures, it generates, what, 3.5 times more in terms of revenue, and we've also got less processing time on the examples that we've used today because no cleaning. So that's all time that can be used for yourself for doing picking, packing, doing your post, setting up other jobs if you've got other machines that you can be using. Because if you know this machine is going to be running for 2.5 hours on the queue or 27 minutes, you can also be more productive by doing all your packing next to your laser. So you're still supervising. It just gives you more efficiency within your business, which I'm sure a lot of you are already doing. It's just that with the Speedy, sometimes those gaps would be smaller.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as Lothian points out there, time is money. Yes, quite. Because not only in terms of the laser processing, sure, that's a big part of it, but just having easy to use laser software that you can just get your job, crack straight on with it, no fighting with it, because if you're fighting with the software for 20 minutes in an hour, then you're only making 2/3 as much money as you could be making. If the laser's not firing, it's not being profitable. So you don't want to be fighting against it. You want it to be simple, elegant, and easy to run through. So yeah, absolutely, time is money. Couldn't agree more.
And as a process, this is really straightforward and easy. The hardest bit is coming up with the design, the creativity, and then matching that with the products. That's the real skill. Operating the laser is quite simple. Get your drawing, press print, send it through to your laser, and then repeat.
Are you basing the drawing being the hardest bit on my podcast with Amy? Because I seem to I seem to prove that pretty much every time I'm on.
Well, that's why I let you do the drawing, Johnny, because I knew it was the hardest bit.
If anyone's not following Amy, please follow her on Instagram because she's amazing and always comes up with brilliant designs. So shout out to Amy Hill again. Lothian, K40s. Oh, yeah. The fact that you run K40s is worth achievement in its own right. It's yeah. I understand exactly where you're coming from.
Mario, time is money, speed is profit.
Absolutely right. So
like
where would
that.
you go to change, setting change to achieve more contrast on the Speedy? Trev, do you want to bring your settings up again, mate, and have a run through that?
Let me just swap screens. Okay, so if I was wanting to alter that setting on here, file and print, just so I bring up the job control menu. We'll open that up and then we can look at the parameters. So 100% power, 80% speed, and then the Z offset. So I'm already using all the power. So if I wanted to get either more depth or more color or contrast into that file, all I would do is I can't add any more power. I would need to take some of the speed away. So I might decide to alter that to 65. That would just slow that down and leave that power in place for longer. The more material as it's running I'm going to remove, that's also going to give me some extra depth slightly. I could also look at altering this offset. I could alter that from 4mm maybe to 5mm, just try and put a little bit of extra colour into it. Or you could use the same settings and look at possibly having a change of lens that would just give you a bigger spot size. And again, it's just a question of experimenting to look at the finish in terms of the colour that you're after and also the depth. And what other process are you looking at doing? But it would literally just be altering those numbers on that menu.
And don't forget, things like this, we're always here to help and advise with. I mean, that's part of the setup that we have. It's not just here's your laser, go and have fun with it, go and look it up on the internet if you have any trouble. It's like, no, we want to be an active participant in getting your results right. So if you've got anything you can't quite get right, I mean, we've had emails this morning, people who are struggling with various applications. So I mean, we're here to help. We're here to assist you and make sure the laser's doing what you need it to do. Because if it's doing that, it's profitable and useful to you. So a few more comments. So morning, Chris. How you doing? Find the market is a toughie part. Can be, depending on what you're looking to do with the laser. Insta racing. So what's the thickest acrylic, Speedy? 100 watt able to cut. That's an interesting question because there's cutting it and cutting it well. So the 120 to cut, the general rule of thumb is, say, 10 watts for every millimeter you want to cut. So for a commercially viable kind of rate. So it will chomp through 12 mil all day long. However, if you run it very slowly and with suitable exhaust for the extraction, I've had it cutting 20 mil with absolutely no problem at all. Changing the DPI to 500 gives a dark finish too. That is an excellent point because then you're going to have more overlap with every pass of the laser. It's going to be affecting the material more. So yeah, that's a fantastic tip too.
I can see that Paul Bowden's asked a quick question. So in terms of altering the direction, we would just go to job control and we would go from bottom to top instead of from top to bottom. So again, just altering that little bit there.
And it's all a case of like being used to materials too, because some materials doesn't make a blind bit of difference, but some materials it can make a real difference between having a really nice looking product and something which could be better. So yeah, things like that very, very useful to do. So I hope everyone's found that useful today. It's certainly been a privilege to kick this off with Trev, and I hope everyone's found it useful. So yeah, do follow us on all of the socials: Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever. And you're always welcome to give us a call if you've got any questions. Me and Trev are always by our emails, ready to answer any queries you might have. There's our main inquiries email. So any questions, feel free to drop us an email or give us a call, and it will come through to us.
Thanks, guys. What a great start. I think my screen, I don't know which one. What a good start for the event. You've set a standard there, I think.
Oh, thank you very much.
We'd like
Really
to think so.